What is up, guys? This is TcG Sam here with the feature match for locals, where I'm going to be playing branded Shaddoll against another guy named Sam on branded Despia. Apparently he has his own YouTube channel too, called TeamSamuraiX1. Not sure if you've heard of him before, but definitely do go check his channel out. I also want to apologize in advance for the glare in this video. It was my first time filming here, and I wasn't aware the glare was this bad. But anyways, getting straight into the duel now. We're going to both shuffle up our decks and do the die roll. So, an interesting thing about this matchup is, since we're both not scythe blocking each other, winning the die roll isn't always that big of a deal as you might imagine, but of course getting to go first is still very important. So I'm able to win the die roll and start with a normal summon of Gale Dogra, sending Apclone for my extra deck to the graveyard by paying 3,000 life points, which is going to give me access to Shaddoll Fusion, and then I have to send a card from my hand to the grave, which will be Shaddoll Hedgehog, which is going to add me a copy of Shaddoll Wendy. And from here, I'm going to go Almirage into Secure Garna, giving myself a light monster. So my Shaddoll Fusion is actually going to be able to summon Construct. Activating Construct and Wendy's effect is going to allow me to set up the quote-unquote like Anaconda combo, where I'm able to like dump Resh, summon a dude face down, and flip it up with Resh afterwards, and trigger Construct again. Because here we actually set Ariel off of the Wendy effect, and then linking into Gravity Controller and resolving Construct to add back Shaddoll Fusion. We're going to leave the Resh in the graveyard because we want to banish it. We're going to end up banishing the copy of Resh and the Construct to flip up Ariel, which will bring back Construct from the banished, triggering Construct once again to dump Shaddoll Schism to the graveyard this time. So that means at this point we have Schism and Shaddoll Fusion to play on our opponent's turn. We're going to link off both of them into Verte Anaconda, paying 2,000 more life points, setting the Branded Fusion and fusing away Verte Anaconda and Albaz from our deck to make Mirror Jade. And Mirror Jade is going to be able to protect our Winda, or Windas in this case, with both Schism and Shaddoll Fusion. So very powerful going first setup for us. It's going to be very hard for him to break unless he has a way to deal with two windows, which, I mean, most decks nowadays don't really have access to that. He's going to think about his plays, and I'm going to take this time to mention that I usually wait for my opponent to activate something that will commit them to a special summon, so like Rite of Aramesir or something. Then I chain like the summon of Winda to that. And that's exactly what Sam starts with. He banishes the Enchantress that Aramesir, activates the Aramesir. I was thinking in my head at this point, if I really wanted to stick by like what I was doing like all day, which was at this point summon Winda, but I decided to let it go through because I wanted him to actually commit to having to normal summon his dude to search a copy of the Dracoback, and then as soon as he activates Dracoback, I'm going to activate Mirror Jade to banish the token and get rid of the Dracoback, saving my Winda and my my Schism and my Shaddoll Fusion. Turns out he hard drew the Dracoback, and at this point, like I said, I'm forced to attempt to banish the token, sending an Albion. I figured this was a good enough trade, and this way I could hold my interruptions. It would be better into something like Forbidden Droplets, because now if he had Droplets, he had to have used it there on the Mirror Jade. But now I kind of can rule out that he doesn't have Droplets. He's going to activate Fight for Patrick next, which is an incredibly powerful card. A card that actually I'm playing in my deck as well, so if you guys haven't checked out the deck profile, be sure to do so. It's already posted on the channel. But anyways, he's going to get to add he's going to add Polymerization and Etch of Chain. And at this point, he's thinking, he knows like I have access to at least two windows, so it's going to be incredibly difficult for him to break. He's going to end up, I believe, taking some more time to think, because this is a hard situation for him to deal with. And as he does that, the camera angle gets progressively worse. I'm sorry about that. I'll definitely make sure it's set up very firmly next time. But yeah, anyways, he's gonna go Foolish Barrel next, which, I mean, at this point, like, I don't have any hand traps. My only interactions are the fusion spells. Which is the other thing with this deck. I don't really play hand traps in this deck, so a lot of the times the interactions that I'm gonna have are just the monsters that I'm gonna be putting onto the board. He's gonna activate the Foolish Barrel, like I said, and thinking about what he actually wants to send at this point, he sends Fallen of Albaz, and this is interesting because it kind of tells me he has Branded and Red in his hand. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense in my opinion for him to Foolish and Albaz. So I was thinking, okay, if he branded it in reds, I'm going to be able to chain Winda, and Guardian Chimera is not going to be able to destroy the Winda. He ends up going Polymerization, and at this point, I'm thinking, well, he doesn't have any monsters on board, so he actually can't summon Guardian Chimera. So he's going to be forced to go into battle phase in order to out this Winda with whatever the one monster that he summons. So yeah, resolving Polymerization is going to let him put a monster on the board at the very least. But still, he's going to have to at least go... I'm going to force him to go battle phase to out the Winda if he wants to keep playing afterwards. And like we still have access to another window with our Shaddoll Schism set. He's going to fuse away Aliber and a copy of Chain. And he's going to think about what fusion he's going to make. So he's going to be able to either make Despia Cortis or Masquerade. Both of which are like okay in this scenario. They're both big enough to beat over Winda, but they don't really progress his game state too much. He essentially is down to like one card in his hand, which isn't really going to be doing him too much unless it's specifically branded in red. But even then, it still wouldn't be like that great because he would only be able to summon an Albaz fusion by resolving the branded in red. He ends up going for Masquerade, and in a new chain, I'm able to trigger Shaddoll Beast to draw a card, which is going to force me to take 600 damage. It is kind of dangerous for me, because you got to keep in mind, I am on 3,000 life points. I paid 3,000 for Gale Dogra and 2,000 more for Anaconda, and I think he saw that the way he was going to win was going to be able to burn me down, force me to only have 3 effects pretty much for the rest of the game. So I'm going to activate Schism, paying another 600, so at this point I paid 1,200, putting myself to down to 1,800, but I'm able to summon Apollo, and Schism's other effect is going to let me send the Masquerade to the graveyard, and in the new chain I'm going to be able to permanently negate his Fateful Adventure. Sam sees the writing on the wall and concedes, so we were able to take that down. We had an incredibly good starting hand. Just goes to show, I guess, how powerful a single Gale Dogra is. It can turn into a light monster after starting your plays, because I think at that point, being able to cycle through the Hedgehog and get access to the El Shaddoll fusion was incredibly important, and that's what allowed me to set up all those different interruptions on my opponent's turn. At this point, when we're getting into siding, I wasn't actually too prepared for the Despia branded matchup, because I didn't think many people would be playing the deck. Honestly, since I went to locals a day earlier and there really wasn't anyone playing the deck, so I figured, oh, okay, they probably won't end up playing the deck. And, well, we did run into someone playing the deck this time. Nonetheless, our main deck should be pretty decent against it, because we do main cards like Super Poly and Shaddoll Fusion, which are huge blowout cards going second. So getting into the next game, I fully expect for him to make me go second, and it turns out I'm right. A lot of people won't make you go first, just after, especially after you just like Winda them, because Winda's an incredibly hard card for them to deal with. He just start with Rite of Aramesir, summoning his token and placing the Fateful Adventure from his deck face up. Like I mentioned, I don't have hand traps in this deck, so essentially he's going to have free reign to do whatever he wants. I only play Gamma, and I might have even sided it out. I can't remember exactly, but either way, where we weren't going to be able to do anything to this anyways, because he has Griffin set up anyways. He's going to discard his Etchem Chain, which is an incredibly powerful synergy with both with the Fateful Adventure. It gets him Patchwork and gets him access to Draco back. And then from here, he's essentially going to be able to have access to a Fusion Spell and Polymerization at the very minimum, in addition to having a Omni Negate on the board, protecting him from all possible hand traps. Or in the very worst case for him, it's going to give him a negation on my turn. So at this point, I'm thinking, how am I going to actually be able to play through this Omni Negate? He activates Branded Fusion, and I'm like, okay, there's nothing I can do to stop it. It's an incredibly powerful opening for his deck. It's probably the best opening in his deck, to be honest. Is being able to protect the Branded Fusion with the Griffin Rider. Anyways, he debates it in Comedy, but actually ends up using Tragedy from his hand. And this is very interesting to me. At the time, I figured, oh, okay, so he probably just has specifically Tragedy, Patchwork, and a Dracoback as the last 3 cards in his hand. He ends up discarding a Dracoback. I was like, sure. At this point, I'm fairly confident I know the last 2 cards in his hand, because why else would he fuse Tragedy from his hand? Most lists are playing 2, so I just assumed he hard drew 2 Tragedies, and I was like, okay, so I should know the rest of his hand. It actually turns out he'd tell me like after the game that he only plays 1, which is interesting because I was so sure my read was correct, that where he had two in his hand. Regardless, he's able to go the Lubellian combo, activate the Mirror Jade to send Albion during the end phase, and banishing itself. Albion's able to set Branded in red to set up Guardian Chimera on my turn. And now I'm thinking, okay, I have to deal with Mirror Jade plus a Guardian Chimera plus a Griffin Rider, so that's a lot of interaction points. I'm going to take a long time to think about this because I believe in my hand I have Fairy Tail Snow and Gale Dogra, and I was debating between if I should normal summon the Gale Dogra or normal summon the Fairy Tail Snow to force out the Griffin Rider. I was fairly confident that no matter which one I did, it would definitely force out the Griffin Rider. But I was just debating between if I wanted to get Snow in the graveyard earlier on, or start with Gale Dogra and potentially force out Branded in red. If he got a little trigger happy with Branded in red, he might have summoned back Mirror Jade and used Mirror Jade on summon or something. I ended up going with the Gale Dogra play, paying for cost. He negates it as I expected, and now we kind of have free reign to play our fusion spells, like Branded Fusion. I was really hoping, I was so confident he didn't have an Ash at this point because I was like, oh, I should know all 3 cards in his hand, being Ad Libitum, Fight for Patchwork, and supposedly the second Tragedy. I believe it ends up resolving because Brand Red doesn't stop that, doesn't stop the Branded Fusion. From here, I'm gonna resolve the Branded Fusion, and you guys are gonna see how powerful Branded Fusion is in Shaddolls. We're going to be able to start our Shaddoll engine by sending any of our Shaddolls to the graveyard. It's just incredible how strong this is. I'm contemplating I'm sending Dragon to force out his Branded Red right now, because the sooner I get that out of the way, the less I have to deal with, and I force him to commit the Mirror Jade to the board, which means I know exactly everything I'm going to be dealing with. So I end up discarding Etchem Chain to use the Rebellion, and then using Shaddoll Dragon to attempt to pop the Branded Red. Of course, he's forced to chain it, and then from here he's debating on what he wants to do. It's a tough spot for him because he's probably going to assume that I'm going to end up summoning a Mirror Jade, and if he tries the Guardian Chimera pop the Mirror Jade, I'm still going to end up plussing because I can chain its effect to banish, and then it'll resolve in the end phase to destroy his entire board. So it's a very tough spot for him. He ends up fusing away the Despian Tragedy, Ad Libitum, and the Adventurer token for, as you guessed it, Guardian Chimera, which is going to allow him to destroy 1 card on my field and draw him 2 cards, presumably draw into more hand traps, ideally for him. But yeah, Guardian Chimera, as you can see, is an incredibly hard card to play around because at this point, if I had something like Droplets, I would be forced to Droplets Guardian Chimera, but then Ad Libitum also brings back a card like Mirror Jade, and then I had to deal with Mirror Jade right after. So kind of a tangent, but I just wanted to mention how hard it is to play around Branded in red. It's an incredibly good card. I don't recall why he was thinking so long, because Guardian Chimera I felt was the only viable play for him here. I do end up thinking about what I want to send, because I know he's only going to be able to pop 1. I actually end up considering if I want to summon Plant Dragostapelia, and the reason I summon Dragostapelia is because I know I'll be able to negate his Chimera in a new chain, since he has no polymerization in the graveyard. The fact that he has no polymerization in the graveyard means I'm actually able to target his Guardian Chimera and actually be able to negate it, so I prevent him from getting the 2 draws. Because I figured, well, I don't want him to draw into hand traps. I know what cards he has right now, and if I'm able to stop him from drawing, all I have to deal with then is a Mirror Jade. So I do exactly that. He activates Chimera on summon. I chain Plant Dragostapelia. You can see Dragostapelia, incredibly powerful card here. We're able to negate the Guardian Chimera. I end up activating the chain that I discarded to search Patchwork, and now I felt like I was really in the driver's seat here. I have access to the Fight for stuff, and Sam only has a Mirror Jade that I have to deal with now, and whose effect's not going to trigger, by the way, if I kill in the end phase, because Ad Libitum summoning it back means it's not a fusion summon monster. I'm going to activate Patchwork here, searching Polymerization and an Edge of Chain, and then I'm going to activate the Polymerization. Sam is going to chain the Mirror Jade to banish the Dragostapelia. He had to, because I was threatening to make a card like Guardian Chimera of my own, popping his board and getting pluses. But I actually have the Shaddoll monster and Fairy Tail Snow in my hand, like I mentioned earlier. So I'm actually able to just hard make El Shaddoll Construct. Construct and Squamata are both going to trigger, dumping Reshaddoll, Wendy and Shaddoll Fusion. So at this point, I felt super confident because I was like, oh, I'm getting access to a Shaddoll Fusion, but then unfortunately, I forget that Branded Fusion does lock me into Fusion Monsters only, so I actually can't make the play where I turn Construct into Gravity Controller. It's something very important you guys have to be cognizant of when you play a card like Branded Fusion. You can think of it as having virtually no restrictions in Shaddolls, aside from the fact that I can't go into very specifically what I mentioned there, the aforementioned Gravity Controller. I am going to end up just I am going to end up fusing away the Construct and the Aerial to attempt to banish all of his follow-ups, so the Albion that he sent and his 2 branded spells. I'm going to trigger the other Construct to add Shaddoll Fusion back to my hand, and then dump Shaddoll Incarnation to the graveyard. Then I'm going to play the Shaddoll Fusion, being able to fuse from my deck since he controls Guardian Chimera summoned from the extra deck. At this point, I'm going to summon Apclone. Apclone's going to permanently negate his copy of Fateful Adventure. And then from here, I get to draw a card from the beast that I sent. And then I'm thinking how I'm going to be able to break his board, because Guardian Chimera is a 3300 monster that's pretty annoying. And I don't know if I'm able to deal with it otherwise. So I'm going to blow up his Guardian Chimera with a Constructs effect. And then while we're still in the battle phase, I am going to activate Super Polymerization that I just drew off of the beast, which is pretty insane. I end up fusing away his monster and my Shaddoll monster for a copy of Winda. And then I'm able to grab back Shaddoll Incarnation from my graveyard and set it to essentially have access to a Construct during his turn. So at this point, I felt super confident because I didn't think there's much he can do. But you can see he revealed the Super Poly there inadvertently, and at that point I knew. I was like, oh, that's not good. Super Poly, as you can see, is just an absolute blowout in the mirror match. We're just able to suck up both of our opponent's monsters and summon our own powerful monsters. There's really not much you can do to play around it. He ends up triggering my Apclone by sending it to the graveyard, so I'm able to add my Wendy back from the grave and then discard it immediately to trigger Wendy to summon one monster from my deck and face that defense. It's also important to note that we are at this point getting very low on time, so that's why Sam has started to speed up a little bit. We are getting low on time, and at this point, I recognize that, like, yeah, I could just take the win on time if, because I know he's going to take a long time to play his turn. I could stall a bit with, like, Snow setting his monsters, but I decided to let him go into battle phase. I tell him you can have the battle phase, just because we were playing a bit, like, slower early on because there was a lot of thinking, and I wanted to just be fair and courteous. So you're going to see he's going to normal summon the Aliber. Aliber's going to grab him access to another branded spell or trap, and you can see how powerful the follow-up this deck has as well. He's able to amass a full board of fusion monsters after clearing my board. He has Despian Comedy to protect his Despia monsters, but he's just going to end up fusing them right away for another copy of Guardian Chimera. And the fact that he plays 2 makes it very hard for me to play around because there's nothing I can do. I can't target it now because of the polymerization in the graveyard, and he gets to draw an extra card. But more importantly, he puts up big bodies on the board, which are pretty hard for me to deal with. I believe I probably should have just rushed Incarnation back window a lot earlier than I did. And when he was attempted to summon Mirror Jade, I probably just should have done that. I wasn't really thinking because I thought like, oh, I'd just be able to win on time anyways. But here he goes, battle phase. Mirror Jade banishes the Fairy Tale Snow, and there isn't really much that I can do. That's it. That's gonna do it for the game. It does end in a draw. Like I mentioned, we were super low on time, but I did let him have the battle phase, so we do end up in getting to the draw. But I definitely could have played that last game a little bit better. Like I said, Shaddoll Incarnationing back the window a lot earlier. But anyways, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and do stay tuned for more videos like this. Thank you.